Welcome to Brampton Focus. In 2015, the federal election deemed Brampton liberal red. With many new faces and personalities in the House of Commons, Brampton Focus has decided to check in. My name's Michael A. Charbon. Next, we meet Mr. Raj Grewal. He's the MP for Brampton East. Next on Brampton Focus. And welcome back to Brampton Focus. My next guest actually was educated in Wilfrid Laurier University. He got a BA in business. He went to York University for his MBA, and he's a lawyer. He ran in the constituency of Brampton East, and he won with a commanding lead. Over 23,000 people voted for this gentleman, over 52% of the voting population in Brampton East. Please welcome Mr. Raj Grewal, who is now in the House of Commons as a federal MP. Raj, thank you so much for coming back. The last time I saw you was at a debate that we had, the all candidates debate, and you were one of those people that stood out. So I have to say congratulations. And first question is, how are things on Parliament Hill? Did it all come to what you thought it was going to be? Is it better? Is it more exciting? What do you say?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Michael, for having me on today. I really appreciate it. I said this during the campaign. I said that I was living the dream, and I truly still am living the dream. It's a true honor and a privilege to sit in the House of Commons where our country's laws are passed, and the people of Brampton East giving me an opportunity to be their voice. And it's a humbling experience, and we're working very, very hard to ensure that not only the people of Brampton East, but all of Brampton has its fair share in this federal government.
That's great. Well, unfortunately, as one would say, we've got to throw you right into the fire, as they would say. I mentioned to a bunch of people that I was very much looking forward to this interview because we have a good relationship. You're a st-up guy, straight shooter, and there are two main subjects that came in conversation that I wanted to bring up to you. One is Bill C-24 was a bill that the Conservative government passed, the previous government, and it allowed for the government to revoke Canadian citizenship from dual citizens, just dual citizens, who were convicted of treason, high treason, spying. They obtained their citizenship through false or illegal means. They served as a member of an armed force who was fighting against Canada, or they've been convicted of foreign terrorism. Currently, the Liberals, just in June actually, passed Bill C-6, which basically removed the ability to revoke citizenship based on these certain elements. Just a quick quote, one Conservative member said that the Liberals are recklessly politicizing Canada's immigration policy, despite the important role it plays in safeguarding the future security and prosperity of Canadians. Today, Raj, if we think about Brexit, or I should say Brexit, we think of radical Islam, ISIS, California, the Mississauga 5, etc. What is your take on C-6 now as a reform to C-24?
Well, I think Bill C-6 is correcting a wrong that was instituted by the previous government. And I've had the privilege of being a member of Parliament for 8 months, and our government isn't going to take any lessons from the previous administration on immigration policies. I mean, throughout the campaign, it was a very important moment for our leader and our party to stand up against the fear and divisive politics of the previous administration. Now, that's not what we're going to spend our time on today. We're going to spend our time on what the focus is about, ensuring that in Canada, once you're a citizen, a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. You cannot unilaterally revoke citizenship in this country. And there was a very important speech that was given in the House of Commons in this previous session when Bill C-6 was being debated. And I spoke about when a family adopts a child. If that child turns out to be a criminal or a bad child, you can't just send the child back to the adoption agency. That's not how this works. And the most important aspect of citizenship is once you become a Canadian citizen, you're a part of the Canadian family. And we will take you, whether you're good or you're bad, but you're contributing to the Canadian society. Obviously, we want all Canadians to be proud Canadians, to ensure that they're being a part of our society.
Law-abiding. Yeah.
Law-abiding, but Bill C-6 ensures that people aren't living in fear. that we're very much an inclusive society, and it's the right thing to do. It's a thing, something that we said during the campaign. It was part of our platform, and Bill C6 is correcting a wrong, and it's ensure that, you know, once you join a Canadian family, you do not have to be worried about somebody coming and unilaterally stripping you of your citizenship.
Okay. The next element was something that actually several people came up to me with, and this is something I was raised in singing the national anthem in a certain way. And O Canada was approved as a national anthem in March of 1967. It supplanted the God Save the Queen, which was, of course, the British element, the Royal Anthem of Canada, as it was called. The current English lyrics, which has had several changes, and was penned by Robert Stanley Weir, which I did not know, in 1908. It was adopted in 1980. There was a change that the Liberal government brought in that replaced the word sons. So instead of saying, in all thy sons command, the Liberal government wanted to change it, in all us command. Now, there was a vote taken in the House of Commons. It was a free vote. It was 225 yes and 74 no. There was one comment. It said rewriting the lyrics of our national anthem in the name of political correctness would go too far. No one I talk to believes this change is necessary, and people do not think our national anthem is broken. What was the point of doing that?
Well, I think there's taking a step back to say that, you know, we're all very proud of our national anthem. We're all very proud Canadians. And the words, we're changing two words from all thy command to all thy sons command to all of us command, and it's to make it gender neutral, and that's the idea behind the private members bill from Ottawa Vanier, the member of Parliament, Muriel Boulanger, who is everybody knows
he has ALS, and he came in.
It's a very emotional moment. Having said that, Michael, that doesn't take away from.
I recognize that, Raj. I recognize that with him, but some people are saying, like, what are you doing? It's the national anthem.
Yeah, and that doesn't take away from the debate, right? Which is an important debate to have. And
it was voted. You guys passed it. You said.
It's a private member's bill, and it was thoroughly debated in the House of Commons. Mm-hmm. It passed. It's now gone on to the Senate, where it will also be debated. So it has not become law yet. Having said that, I did vote in favor of it. I think a more inclusive national anthem, a gender-neutral national anthem, is very important. And things, they change as society shifts, and this is important to recognize. In Canada, we've always been at the leading edge of all of these things, whether it comes to LGBTQ rights, whether it comes to, favoring immigration policy, to whether it comes to language rights. We've always, Canada's, and it's a very proud moment for Canada to say that, yes, even in our national anthem, right, we will make it gender neutral.
Raj, excellent answers. When we come back to Brampton Focus, we're going to talk about the budget. We're going to talk about what's coming to Brampton. I'm talking with Mr. Raj Grewal. You're watching Brampton Focus. My name is Michael A. Charbon. Back right after this. Welcome back to Brampton Focus. I'm joined by Mr. Raj Grewal, who is representing Brampton East, and he's sitting in the 42nd House of Commons, a Parliament man, Minister of Parliament. That's kind of cool, eh?
I mean, it's one of the coolest jobs in the country.
How does it affect you when you go to the local variety store and it's like, Mr. Grewal? It's definitely different, isn't it?
Oh, it's humbling. It's really nice to know that people in our country can just come up to their local representatives and talk about local issues, talk about the problems they're having. And I've always said that in the first 8 months, the greatest satisfaction has been able to solve some people's problems, and the greatest dissatisfaction has been not being able to solve somebody's genuine problem. Mm-hmm. And that's what keeps you up at night, because you're in this role and you're trying to do as much as you possibly can for the people of Brampton. And everybody's problems are local, and everybody's problems come right in front of their home, or whether it's a federal issue, a provincial or a municipal issue. If they call their local representative, they're looking for results, and it's our job to get them those results.
Well, you're a stand-up guy, and people feel engaged when they speak to you. Bill Morneau, who's the finance minister, first budget that he released through the Liberals under the leadership of Mr. Trudeau, they talked about reasonable and affordable deficits, and basically he put a budget in with $29.4 billion. There's infrastructure spending, there's First Nations, extended EIU, et cetera, et cetera. How do you how do you describe this to Canadians that you want to go in debt by the tune of $29.4 billion in this day and age?
Yeah, well, first you got to look at the context of the Canadian economy. It's a $2 trillion economy. And you also got to look into the context of the last 10 years. Now, the government ran on a pledge for investing in Canadians, not only in the country, but Canadian families. In the last 10 years, we've seen very slow economic growth, the worst in the G7, actually. We've had the worst job growth record since R.B. Bennett was Prime Minister in the early 1900s. So the time to invest in Canada is now. We've also had the recommendations of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank to know that infrastructure investment is the best way the federal government can create economic growth. So the number, although $29.3 billion is a big number, as a percentage, it's very small. And also, you got to look how we're spending the money. We're spending the money to create investment. We're creating investment by delivering a middle income tax cut for Canadian families that are working harder to ensure that they have more money to provide for their families. And but how we're doing, we're offsetting some of that cost by increasing taxes on the wealthiest Canadians that can afford it, those making over $200,000. We're also on July 1st, the Canada Child Benefit checks will start rolling out. 9 out of 10 families will receive more after-tax money under the Canada Child Benefit than they previously did. Almost 300,000 families with children will be coming out of poverty because of this one investment. For example, if somebody has 2 children under the age of 18 and their household income is around $45,000, they'll be making $6,000 in after-tax.
That's all good. That's all good, and I agree that that's a promise that you guys made. Some people are saying, some people from the taxation group, that we're paying $90 million a day in interest that we can't afford. Without harping on it, I mean, is there no guilt of working on such a debt? Even though you say it's a small portion of the GDP, I get that. Yeah. But we're still in the ditch.
Well, the fact of the matter is, if you take a step back and you look at the G7 countries, which were comparable economies to Canada, we're actually very fiscally sound. And when you say that numbers like that, it may worry some people. But the fact of the matter is, we have a $2 trillion economy. We have a plan. The Finance Minister, Bill Martineau, has a plan to get us back to a balanced budget within the 4th year of our mandate. And we also have a declining debt to GDP ratio. So our economy is actually growing, and our debt is shrinking as a percentage of our GDP. So that's a more important number. And that number is declining.
Well, I hope you're right.
No, I know I'm right.
That's good. Well, you have to. I hope you're right. Yeah. Let's go quickly. One of the things that we take pride in here at Brampton Focus is we have a Facebook page, and we get questions from our viewers and our listeners and our podcast watchers. And one of the questions they wanted to bring up was, will there be any public consultation on any free trade agreements? We just experienced, as of late, the Brexit, so the EU now is going through a little bit of turmoil, not as much as they thought it was going to be. But we've got the CETA, the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, Trade and Services Agreement, etc., and our relationship with the UK. How do you see the Liberal government dealing with this new trade partner now, who is on their own, on an island, if you wish, and the EU is separate?
Well, I think most importantly, we have to go back to, we're running on an open, transparent, and accountable government. We've consulted on everything we've done thus far, and we're going to continue to consult. The Trans-Pacific Partnership consultations are happening coast to coast to coast as we speak. And so it's really important to, democracy at its core has always been the ability of its elected representatives to interact with the people that they're representing. And the government has made a pledge to do that. And it's a nice change from the previous administration. So whether it's on TPP, whether it's on CETA, whether it's on internal trade, there will always be wide consultations. Now, Michael, you make a great point on the situation in Europe. And that's a new situation. And the global economy, obviously, in the first 24 hours was very reactionary. But the Canadian
pound lost 10 cents. Yeah. No big deal. The markets opened with 500 under, and the end of the day was 600, and it started to recover. So it's not as bad as everybody thought.
I mean, there's going to be a period of resetting at this point as the world adjusts to the new reality of an independent United Kingdom and within a strong EU, a European Union. And I think that the challenges for the Canadian economy, because we have these long-lasting partnerships with trade agreements, we will be negotiating a new trade agreement with the United Kingdom. And the trade agreement's always got to benefit for both countries, but it's got to be a net benefit for Canada. And at the end of the day, the government's made a clear pledge that we will not enter into agreements that do not make sense for the Canadian people.
Okay, with 1 minute left, 1 minute, just a quickie answer here. When we're talking about changing voting, representational voting, one of our questioners from Brampton Focus said about public consultation or electoral reform. Will the Liberal government consider an open referendum to consider electoral reform?
So the government made a pledge that that last election will be the last election under the current system, the first past the post system. We have a committee set up for electoral reform that's sitting right now throughout the summer, which is shows the importance of this issue. And it's also really important to note, Michael, and for our viewers, is that this is the first committee that's actually being chaired by the opposition. Sorry, it's being chaired by the government, but it has more opposition members.
Yeah, everybody's coming together. So you will take that in consideration.
For sure. And nothing's off the table, and consultations will happen, including within Brampton. There will be town halls being held on electoral reform.
Minister of Parliament for the 42nd sitting of the House of Commons, Mr. Raj Grewal, a member of Parliament representing the Brampton East community. When we come back, Brampton Focus, our very last segment, and we're going to talk about hyper-focused issues dealing with Brampton. And what is the Liberal government going to do for you, and what can this man do to help us? Raj Grewal. My name is Michael A. Charbon, back with lots more Brampton Focus in our last segment right after this. Welcome back to Brampton Focus, our final segment with Mr. Raj Grewal, a representative in the House of Commons for Brampton East. Quickly, I'm going to ask you infrastructure. That's what's on the minds of people in Brampton. They want to know, what about shovel-ready elements? The government promised infrastructure spending and money to Brampton. I mean, we've got a university that we want to get built here.
Yeah.
What's your position from the Liberal government for Brampton, a university, and infrastructure?
Well, first and foremost, we're very supportive of a university, and I just, the members of Parliament had just recently written to the provincial minister in charge of universities for our support, and saying that the federal government would be, the Brampton members of Parliament are ready and willing to fight for infrastructure dollars when it comes to a university in Brampton. It's very important to our city. It's the 9th biggest city in the country and the only city that does not have a university campus. So I'm very, very very much looking forward to the provincial government giving us the go-ahead for a university in Brampton. And then the federal infrastructure program, we've already mentioned it to the Minister of Infrastructure that if a university gets approved in Brampton, that we will be requesting funds to ensure that the university is built correctly and that the money is there to support the city. In terms of shovel-ready projects, we've also...
That's employment, you see.
Yeah,
we need that. So. It's great to talk about infrastructure, but the money takes a long time to start to filter down. When can people in Brampton see some tangible results?
Yeah, so we're working very, very well with our city's administration. Mayor Linda Jeffries has been very cooperative. Anytime we've asked for a meeting, she's been willing to meet with us. They've submitted their request for the federal economic budget and for the federal infrastructure dollars, and we've fully supported them. And another thing to note is that all the Brampton MPs are on the same page when it comes to supporting the city's infrastructure goals. But one thing that the government at the federal level has done, they changed the funding formulas. Before, a lot of the projects were tied in bureaucratic red tape, who's going to put in what amount, et cetera, et cetera. The federal government is really loosening the change. Not to say that the money will be spent irresponsibly, it's to say that the money will be spent more efficiently to ensure it gets to the city quicker, the city is able to get the money spent quicker, to ensure that we're building a better Brampton for all of us to enjoy.
Raj, we're going to keep that quote. I mean, that's the quote that we want.
Yes.
I mean, I can see the passion in your voice. I know of you. I know where your emotion is at. Share with us a little bit the experience of actually walking in the House of Commons. I mean, going through an election the first time is it's like herding cats sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult. And you make so many promises and do so much. What is it like finally when you get there and you know that you have some power now to make some change and do some benefit for your constituents?
Well, I think at its core is I never want to forget the people that sent me to Brampton, to Ottawa, is the people of Brampton East who gave me the opportunity. I mean, I always said during the campaign that I've lived there for 25 years now. I'm always going to live in Brampton East. It's my home. And, I said during the campaign that I'd be an accessible member of Parliament. And that's what is my #1 priority, is to ensure that I pick up my phone, when I return my calls, I meet with as many people that want to meet with their member of parliament, and I give 110% on every file. I mean, the real expectation is not, I can't solve everybody's problems, but I will give 110% effort to ensure that I try to solve their problems. And that's been the core of the experience. I mean, there's no better feeling than standing up in the House of Commons and raising your voice for your constituents. And for me, as a younger member of parliament, I mean, youth issues are very important for us to ensure that we have more money, and the federal government has been investing more money in post-secondary education. When I go visit schools in Brampton East, I see the limitless, the unlimited potential in young Canadians that we have in our city, and I'm so excited to what the future leadership in the city has to bring.
Is there a pet project for you, or is there one thing that you want to put through?
Yeah, so the PEP project is to ensure that working towards a very important decision that no child in our country should be making the decision on to go to post-secondary education based on the cost of it. If you have the grades, if you have the work ethic, the federal government, the provincial government, and the city should be there for you to ensure that you make the decision to go and educate yourself, because investing in young Canadians means good economic opportunities for all Canadians.
So with about a minute left, 2 minutes left, I should say, I want to give you an opportunity to talk to the folks at home and speak to them about what it is you want from them and how they can make your job not necessarily easier, but make your job more effective in reflecting what it is you want the constituents and the people of Brampton, because you not only represent Brampton East, you represent Brampton as a whole as well.
And you know, thank you, Michael, and thank you for the opportunity. And I look forward to coming back every couple of months to give the people of Brampton an update. You know, we said that we're not going to change our cell phone number, so you can call me directly, 416-948-3665. You can tell me your concerns, you can tell me your problems. Doesn't matter where you are from the city of Brampton. Me and my office would be happy to help you. We're starting another basketball drop-in session. We had one going on in the winter. It will be at Gore Meadows Recreation Center. It'll be free of charge out of my personal pocket to rent the gym out for young Canadians to come and play basketball. These are the types of initiatives that we'll be doing throughout the summer. One thing we also promised during the campaign was that we're not just going to be there during the campaign to ask for votes. We're door knocking this week to ensure that you know, we're going out and we're meeting and connecting with the people that sent us to Ottawa. There's no worse thing in democracy is when the people that elect a representative cannot get in touch with the representative, right? So we're going to go back onto the streets. We're going to knock the doors. We're going to ask, how can we help you? What are your concerns? Give us a call. Give us some advice. We want to know the problems that you're facing on a day-to-day basis so we can help solve those problems, and we can ensure that Brampton finally gets its fair share from the federal government. And I think that's the lens that all of us MPs are approaching it through, and that's the tone that the Prime Minister has set. The Prime Minister has made it very clear to all of his MPs that you're going to spend the summers back in your ridings and you're going to work hard to connect with the people that sent you there in the first place.
20 seconds left. One sentence. What's the most poignant thing that you learned?
The job is very humbling,
Humbling.
which is a good thing.
Mr. Raj Grewal, representing Brampton East, I thank you for taking the time.
My absolute
I also
pleasure.
thank you for taking the time to participate in the All Candidates debate. You're doing a great job.
Thank
My name
you
is
very
Michael A. Charbon. You're watching Brampton Focus. Thank you so much for watching, and go to our Facebook page or brampton.ca. Thanks for watching.